It's saying preparing to live stream, setting up meeting for YouTube live. It's saying.
Yeah, on my screen it's saying it's streaming live now on YouTube.
Okay, 1 second.
If you want, even I have an author Amish page. If you want to link that, then I
don't know. Karan, आप उनकी टीम को टच में करो और ये लिंक भेज के लिंक कर लो. कैसे करते हैं मुझे मैं
लाइव. तो just I'll tell you what. Actually, even I don't know how it's done. Just mention @author Amish. मेरा भी एक page है. And then I'll ask my team to just share it later.
Okay. Sorry. डिस्क्रिप्शन में डाल देता हूँ उसको. ठीक. करण मैं लाइव हो गया हूँ.
जी सर आप इसमें आ गए.
Okay. बोल रहे हैं. Okay. 1 second. So और ट्वीट कर दो इसको, फेसबुक पे डाल दो इसको लिंक को. All right, we are all frankly getting used to technology, so apologies to the audience for joining late, and it's not Amish's fault, it's my fault. He was there 5 minutes before, so I must say it is not that the celebrity was late, it is that the poor me was struggling with technology, as you all know, and a lot of you have taught me technology. So to the audience, you all know Amish, but it is for me to say, because I was just Googling him. He is as famous as he's humble, because I was just reading that Forbes has ranked him in the top 100 celebrities in India in 2012, 13, 14, 15, 17, 18, and I think it will be in 20, 21, 22, 25, 50. So I am very excited to chat with him because I like to read. So a lot of guests, as you know, we started this, हमने YouTube channel शुरू किया lockdown में, और आपने इसको super hit कर दिया है. मैं आज चेक कर रहा था 14 लाख मिनट आप लोगों ने इस चैनल को देखा है लास्ट 28 दिनों में, और मुझे बहुत लोगों ने बताया कि 2-2 लाख सब्सक्राइबर होते हैं तब भी नहीं देख पाते, क्योंकि आप मेरा आधा घंटा पौना घंटा देख रहे हैं, इसलिए इतना टाइम बढ़ गया है, और अब तो नंबर्स भी बहुत अच्छे कर दिए आपने. सो थैंक यू फॉर ज्वाइनिंग. जो जुड़ रहे हैं प्लीज सब्सक्राइब. लाइव चैट है, आप अपने क्वेश्चन भी भेज सकते हैं, और जो पहली बारी जुड़ रहे हैं प्लीज डू सब्सक्राइब टू द चैनल. एंड विदाउट वेस्टिंग मोर टाइम आई वुड लाइक टू नाउ इनवाइट अमिश ऑन द डिबेट. Please come in.
Thank you, Ishkaran. Thank you so much. You know, all of us are struggling with technology, man. मैं भी बहुत struggle कर रहा हूँ. मुझे ज़्यादातर समझ में नहीं आता है, but we have no choice now. All of us have to learn.
We all have to learn. You are absolutely right. So one of the first questions I wanted to ask you भी, हमने आज discuss करना है, थोड़ा हिंदी इंग्लिश करेंगे mix.
हाँ जरूर, खिचड़ी करेंगे.
हाँ, वो दोनों तरफ से लोग बोलते हैं, इंग्लिश बोलिए हिंदी. So आज जो हम लंबी बात तो उस पर करेंगे कि कैसे हमारे रामायण, हमारे ग्रंथ सिखाते हैं टू डील विद क्राइसिस, बिकॉज ये कोरोना वायरस इज गोइंग टू बी अ क्राइसिस व्हिच इज आई थिंक वंस इन अ लाइफ टाइम सॉर्ट ऑफ अ क्राइसिस. बहुत वर्ल्ड चेंज करेगा. बट उससे पहले मुझे एक पर्सनल सवाल पूछना था आपसे. पर्सनल इन द सेंस कि आपका क्या, जब मैंने आपकी पहली पढ़ी थी मॉर्टल्स ऑफ मेलुआ, आई डिड नॉट नो यू दैट टाइम, बट आई फाउंड इट अ वेरी इनोवेटिव ओरिजिनल वे ऑफ राइटिंग, ओरिजिनल इंटरप्रिटेशन. सो आप पर्सनल लाइफ में, वर्क लाइफ में भी इतने इनोवेटिव हैं, और did it just flow through when you were writing characters or you were writing a novel? What are you like in personal life? This innovative, or it's to your writing?
You know, I think the best way to answer this is to tell you what my personal life was like before I wrote my first book. I am as left-brained a person as they come. I graduated in mathematics. I did an MBA in finance and marketing. I was always very academically oriented. I was in financial services for 14 years. You don't get more left-brained than that. I was completely rational, logical. So in my school and college also, I was active in sports also, boxing, gymnastics, cross-country running, all those things. But I was never creative, never. So honestly, मैंने ये कई बार कहा है, मेरे जो स्कूल कॉलेज के जो मित्र हैं, जब भी मुझसे आज मिलते हैं तो हरदम पूछते हैं कि यार सच पता है एक्चुअली किसने लिखा है, क्योंकि तू तो नहीं लिख सकता था इसे. I wasn't someone you'd call innovative or creative at all. I was, like I said, I was as left-brained as they come. And I've said this many times. I think it's Lord Shiva's blessings that I have written such long books and they've done well. So most of this right brain, the creativity, the innovation, ये सारा श्रेय शिव जी को जाता है, महादेव को जाता है, बस उनकी कृपा है. That's what I believe. I know some people may laugh at that. I don't care. I genuinely believe it's is Lord Shiva's blessings.
It has to be, because that's what I thought. Because the first thing which struck me when I read your first book was how innovatively you have, dealt with characters. But to talk about your recent, what made you show Ravan in what I would say a humane way, in a human way?
आपकी आवाज थोड़ी टूट रही है बीच में.
मेरी आवाज थोड़ी टूट रही है.
Sorry. Now I can hear you.
Put it on a different Wi-Fi then. Okay, 1 second. Is this better now?
Yeah.
This will be better.
Yes.
So, like when you wrote about Ravan and you brought him out in a very human way, situational circumstances which go into making a person. So it was a very different way of projecting him from what we have seen in, let's say, frankly, 80s version of. Did you already had that in mind? Did you see that as a child you must have seen, but uske baad aapne Ramayan dekhi कि public perception ye hai? Or you went back to scriptures? How did you research and come out with this version of Ravan?
देखिए, one of the things our ancestors used to say is life is not often about what happens to you. Life is often about how you react to what happens to you. You know, all of us are dealt a deck of cards. How we play it is up to us. And another thing, especially on the Buddhist and some of the monk traditions of Hinduism and Jainism, is believed, as Gautam Buddha had also said, that grief is a fundamental reality of life. Everyone receives his quota of grief, of dukh. There is no escaping. You know, there's no point in saying कि मेरे साथ क्यों हो रहा है, because the reality is सबके साथ हो रहा है. This is a reality of life. The point is that it is up to us how we react to that grief and suffering. Will we react like Lord Ram, where the more he suffered, the more righteous, the more noble he became? Or will we react like Ravan, where the more he suffered, he got more angry, more hatred towards the world, कि यार मेरे साथ ही क्यों हो रहा है? Yeah, there's no doubt that both suffered. You know, and as our ancestors said, यार दुख हर किसी को मिलता है. And another thing that our ancestors used to say is there's no point in judging someone else. You know, language often tells you a lot about the culture in which that language emerged. आप देखेंगे अंग्रेजी में जो one male god है, the god is written with a capital G. But have you noticed, जब goddess लिखते हैं, it's written with a small g. It's a subtle thing, but it tells you the culture from which that language emerged. That one male god is superior to the goddess. Sanskrit mein, Vedic Sanskrit mein, there is no difference between male god and female goddess. How you refer to them is exactly the same, which tells you the culture in which that language emerged. Correct? That in our ancient culture, men and women were treated as equals. Similarly, language gives you so the point is language gives you a clue of the culture. So Vedic Sanskrit does not have a translation for the English word blasphemy. Vedic Sanskrit does not have a translation for the English word judgment, because their entire concept was don't waste time judging others, spend time actually learning from others and applying that lesson in your own life. Because whose karma do you have control over? Only yourself. No point judging someone else. You have no control over the karma of that person. It's a waste of time. Learn from that person, apply in your own life. So that is the way to see Ravan as well. Every character who we see in our stories, our task is to learn from them and apply in our own lives. So our ancestors used to say there's something to be learned from Ravan also. He was very capable, no doubt. That even the ancient versions say. He was very capable. He was a brilliant person. तांडव स्तोत्र की रचना तो उसने की थी. आज की तारीख में मैं घोर शिव भक्त हूँ. ओम नमः शिवाय कड़ा पहनता हूँ, रुद्राक्ष माला पहनता हूँ, रोज सुबह महामृत्युंजय जप करता हूँ. लेकिन हम जो घोर शिव भक्त हैं, आज तक हम लोग तांडव स्तोत्रम हम लोग चांट करते हैं. तांडव स्तोत्रम की रचना रावण ने की थी. You know, Shaivites know this. Many others don't know this. But today, till today, we Shaivites chant a hymn that was written by Ravan in honor of Lord Shiva. So it tells you that Ravan was an intellectual as well. He was a brilliant warrior. But what are his problems? No control over his ego. Okay. no control over his anger. So that's what we can learn from him. Try and control our ego. It's for our own good. It's not for the good of others. It's for our own good to control our ego.
आपने बहुत अच्छी बात बोली कि डिफिकल्टीज दोनों को आई, भगवान राम को भी आई, रावण को भी आई. Ravan was also of a very high, let's say, bhakti and elevation.
Yeah,
he could have
Shiv
even higher. He could have reached even higher elevation, and probably.
And you're right. Prabhu Shri Ram and Ravan, dono Shiv Bhakt the. They were both worshippers of Lord Shiva.
So, small character traits कहाँ से कहाँ आपको ले जा सकते हैं in your bhakti. Very important. Other thing I found very interesting is in this series how you have shown Sita Maiya as a warrior princess, a person who is a warrior. What made you get into this mold as versus the what version most people have seen of somebody could come, Lakshman Rekha, kidnap her, go, and then somebody had to go and ये बात मैं इसलिए पूछ रहा हूँ because बहुत communists कहते हैं कि हमारे scriptures misogynistic हैं कि आपने female को frail दिखाया है और men went and saved her. So how do you see, and your version is very different. So how do you see it if you want to get into this?
Okay, I will not dignify communist interpretations of our Hindu scriptures with even an answer. Karl Marx खुद बहुत misogynist था. Karl Marx, who is their one true God, was among the most misogynist people around. He hated India also, by the way. You should read what Karl Marx wrote about India. So I'm not going to dignify that with an answer. But देखिए ऐसा है कि आज के आधुनिक माहौल में और खासकर शहरी इलाकों में तो सीता माँ की जो छवि हमारे मन में है, the image that we have of her is in many ways molded by Ramanand Sagarji's Ramayana. And I'm specifically saying Ramanand Sagarji's Ramayana because Ramanand Sagarji's Ramayana is largely based on the Ramcharitmanas, but also has a lot of Valmiki Ramayana, has some parts of the Kamba Ramayanam as well, has some parts of Ramanand Sagarji's own interpretations and imagination. And in that, of course, Sita Ma has been shown in the way that we have seen. And even in Tulsidas Ji's Ramcharitmanas, there is, of course, what we have seen. But let me ask you a question. You spoke of Lakshman Rekha. So, is Lakshman Rekha mentioned in the original Ramayana? Question to you and to your audience.
Let me see. We have already 150 people have already joined. Okay, some Deepti ji says in reality there was nothing as Lakshman Rekha. This was again added later to say Sita was disobedient and gullible. I am quoting.
Who said Deepti ji, right?
Deepti ji.
Deepti ji ke liye taliyan. She is right. In the original Valmiki Ramayana, Lakshman Rekha का वर्णन नहीं है. Original Valmiki Ramayana. पहली बार जो लक्ष्मण रेखा का वर्णन होता है वो रामचरितमानस में होता है. And even in the Ramcharitmanas, Lakshman Rekha is not shown the way we have seen it in the television serial. जो लक्ष्मण जी जो बाण लेके जो जमीन पे जो खींचते हैं लाइन.
Circle मारते हैं.
Correct. So no, that is not there even in the Ramcharitmanas. That is actually in Ramanand Sagarji's Ramayana. I respect Ramanand Sagarji a lot. He's done yeoman service to India. I don't deny that. He has, so many people. हमारी शिक्षा प्रणाली ऐसी है. It had cut off all our people from our education. Ramanand Sagarji has done yeoman service to India. Yeah. But yes, this was something different. It is not there in the Valmiki Ram. So, if you see a more ancient version, Sita Ma is shown as a far stronger character than what we see today. And even Valmiki ji, it is believed that there are 3 versions of the Ramayana credited to Valmiki ji. One is, of course, the Valmiki Ramayana, which is considered as the original Ramayana. There is also the Ananda Ramayana and the Adbhut Ramayana. These 3 are all credited to Maharishi Valmiki ji. There are, of course, other versions of the Ramayana. Kamban Ramayana, the Tamil version hai. Ramayana Darshanam, Kannada version, Gond Ramayani travel version. There are many, hundreds of Hari Ananta, Hari Katha Ananta. So let's look at the three that are credited to Valmiki ji. Okay. In the Adbhut Ramayana, in the Valmiki Ramayana, of course, Ravan is killed by Lord Ram. Ravan was Prabhu Shri Ram ne kiya. In the Valmiki Ramayana, there are two Ravans. And the main Ravan is the elder Ravan, the tougher Ravan, who was killed by Sita Ma, not by Lord Ram. He was killed by Sita Ma. Okay. And in that Adbhut Ramayana, there is a different interpretation. आपने ये line तो सुना होगा महाभारत का यदा यदा धर्मस्य ग्लानिर्भवति भारत. A very famous line. Lord Krishna says that whenever adharma rises or dharma declines, he will come, right? And he will save us. There's a different interpretation to this line in the Adbhut Ramayana. Yada yada dharmasya ग्लानिर्भवति सुव्रत, not bharata, suvrata, abhyuthanam adharmasya tada prakruti sambhava. That whenever dharma declines or adharma rises, remember, O keeper of righteous vows, the sacred feminine will incarnate, Ma Prakruti. And she,
to your last line.
That is Sita Ma. This is one.
That
she will incarnate and she will defend us. In fact, I love this line so much that in the beginning of Sita, Warrior of Mithila, I actually put this line in there. So there is a strong feminist interpretation as well in our traditions. So the point is that is our Indian way. We don't have to, our traditions, our ancient traditions are deeply feminist. Are not modern Western feminist, I'm not, but like in terms of seeing men and women as equal. That's something we should celebrate. We should speak of. लेकिन हमको ये सिखाया नहीं जाता है. So, so we think our traditions are, what is that word they use? Patriarchal.
Yeah. No, but in fact, I would just add here कि जैसे आपने बहुत अच्छा point बोला.
Our traditions had strong women and strong men. Both strong women and strong men.
जैसे आपने बहुत अच्छा बोला, capital G and small g. It's a subtle things, but they show everything. And अगर हमारे में ही देखा जाए, when you need wealth, you pray to Lakshmi Ma. When you need education, you pray to Saraswati Ma. When you need to be defended, you pray to Durga Ma. So as and then somebody raises the question, and this is what Dr. Swamy says very often: कि ministry मर्दों को कौन सी मिली? So he says information broadcasting ministry. So if we are praying for wealth, money, education to female goddesses, so that shows that is what our way is, which is not very prevalent in other religions.
Ishkaran, we are the last surviving goddess worshipping culture. So I'm not lying and saying that I won't say that everything in India today is perfect. But what I always try and say is that we can either fight for women's rights today by using some American or British examples, which any normal Indian will say, boss, mera isse kya lena dena hai? Okay. Or we can use our own ancient examples, because our ancestors were very liberal when it came to women's rights, when it came to LGBT rights. So we can use our own ancient traditions to fight for this cause. I always say those who fight for women's rights are not being less Indian. In fact, they are being more Indian, because our ancient traditions was this.
In fact, even if we see our constitution, people had 100-year, 120-year struggle in US, UK, where you are right now, in getting women voting right.
Exactly.
I don't think it was ever debated that women will not have voting right when men got voting right.
Because it's the obvious thing to us. Yeah.
It could easily have been a similar struggle in India, but it was not.
It wasn't.
Because ये हमारा एक मूल, I would say, culture है.
Correct. हमारी मूल संस्कृति यही है.
But were you apprehensive when you were, or rather apprehensive, I presume, how apprehensive were you when you were doing interpretative, original, innovative interpretation of gods and goddesses? Because a lot of people could get touchy about it also. It's a very thin line to walk.
यार, I'll ask this as a counter question. आपने मेरे नाम से कभी भी कोई कंट्रोवर्सी जुड़ी देखी है आपने? शिवजी की कृपा से my books have sold some 5 million copies right now. It's not really a secret. In fact, What my publishers told me, Shiva trilogy is the highest selling ever, and Ramchand series second highest selling ever. It has been translated into 19 languages. सिर्फ अंग्रेजी में नहीं है. It's there in. एक भी controversy कभी आपने मेरे नाम के साथ जुड़ी आपने सुनी? क्यों नहीं? मैं इसका श्रेय खुद को नहीं दे रहा हूँ. I'm saying we Indians are like this. We Indians are deeply liberal. We Indians never get tired of hearing the stories of our own gods and goddesses again and again and again. That is why that's one of the reasons I believe our culture is alive. Why have all other ancient cultures died out, whereas we are still alive? Because we are never tired of hearing these stories, and we want to hear them in different ways again and again and again. I think we have no problem with different truths. The only condition I think we Indians have is you present your truth, but present it with respect. Okay. Why are Indians comfortable with multiple truths? If you think about it, आप North Indian हैं, तो आपके हिसाब से who's elder, Lord Ganesh or Lord Kartik? Who's elder according to you?
Let me ask the question. People are saying very enlightening discourse.
Thank you.
Please answer the question also. We will keep.
Okay. So let me tell you. In North India, it is believed that Lord Kartik is elder. I'd studied in Tamil Nadu, by the way. I'd learned a bit of Tamil also in that time. I still remember a little bit.
Okay.
So when I'd gone to Tamil Nadu, I would have been 8-9 years old. At that time, I discovered in Tamil Nadu, it is believed Lord Ganesh is elder. But in North India, because I'm from Banaras, my family is originally from Banaras, we believe Lord Kartik is elder. Then what is the truth? Ye to contradiction ho gaya. In North India, it is believed Lord Kartik is a bachelor. But in South India, Lord Kartik has 2 wives. So what is the truth? So if you notice, all of us Indians, intrinsically from a growing up age only, we become comfortable with multiple truths because we are used to seeing multiple truths. We're used to it. Like my mother, she's a deeply religious woman. I told you, I come from a very religious family. So because Lord Kartik is a bachelor in North India, many women do not even enter Lord Kartik temple. Also because he's the god of war. But in South India, obviously women enter peacefully because he has 2 wives. My mother, deeply religious woman, in North India, she does not enter a Lord Kartik temple. When you go to Tamil Nadu, she peacefully enters, does a puja out there. Now, if you think about it, this is the beauty of the Indian way. We are so liberal that we are comfortable with multiple truths. There's only one condition: it must be done with respect. Okay, and this, I think, even if you've read or not read my books, anyone who's read my books, even if they don't like it, I think most people will agree. I've written with respect. Because I actually worship the gods and goddesses I write on. And I don't write with the aim of any controversy. So controversy kabhi hoti nahi. Because I'm genuinely proud of our culture. It's a different interpretation, but it's been written with respect and pride. Kabhi controversy hoti nahi. I think Indians are deeply liberal in our way of life. All we insist is, boss, हमारे देवी देवताओं के बारे में लिखेंगे तो श्रद्धा से लिखे, इज्जत से लिखे, बस.
No, but I think almost anybody who's capable of reading, by capable of reading I say जिसने 5-7 novels अपने जिंदगी में पढ़े हों, बहुत bare minimum है, has read Amish. And in fact, it is a fact. Anybody who's capable of reading this, I'll tell you why. Because you should also have a feedback. I used to read a lot in school, college times, and life got busy. So very rarely one could finish a book. Your Immortal Maruha, I finished it, read the second one, read the third one, and those were early years of career, so time to hota hi nahi tha. As you have come from a corporate job, you know it very, very well ke hota nahi. So that is, as I said, anybody who's capable of reading has read you. And I was reading this, that at one time out of top 10 bestsellers, 6 were your. And that is done without controversy. Because हमारे देश में मुझे नहीं लगता religion से ज़्यादा controversial कोई subject हो सकता है, 19-21 भी हो जाए. Even with the best of intentions. So it is, yes, God's blessing ke it went well in that way.
Then one of the learnings I'm telling you, I've had often, you interact with the media also, Ishkaran, you know it's the truth. कई बार लेखक या फिल्म मेकर या अभिनेता वो लोग खुद कंट्रोवर्सी क्रिएट करते हैं, क्योंकि कंट्रोवर्सी इज द इजीएस्ट वे टू डू मार्केटिंग. मैं जेन्युइन श्रद्धालु हूं, तो माय थिंग इज वेरी क्लियर एंड टू माय पब्लिशर्स आल्सो वेरी क्लियर. कंट्रोवर्सी करके बेचना है तो बेहतर हो कि बिके ही नहीं. बेचेंगे तो ढंग से बेचेंगे. ओके, शिवजी हमारे भगवानों के बारे में लिखा जा रहा है, तो इट हैज टू बी सोल्ड विद रिस्पेक्ट. देन कंट्रोवर्सी नहीं होती. एंड द लर्निंग आई हैव लर्नड You don't need controversy to sell, yeah. You don't actually. It is an easier thing. Controversy khadi kar do, marketing apne aap nikal jayegi. If you don't want to sell with controversy, it is harder work. But if you yourself avoid controversy, nahi hoti hai.
Absolutely, it is harder work. आप दो अटपटी statements बोल दीजिए. Media will cover you, will give you wall-to-wall coverage. In politics, if I say Trump has taught the world how much controversy he can sell, it gives you airspace. It gives you airspace. And to have taken the harder path is not such a easy thing. Did you, when you were writing your first book, and before I come to that, this is something I want to ask. For most Indians, somebody who went to IIM, and those who do not know, he is a brilliant person who was a success before he became a novelist. Very few people who are massive successes in two careers, and he has a third career also, not as a now as a diplomat. But I will talk about his first career first. So for most Indians who went to college in 90s, if you enter into IIT and IIMs, and those times they were like ginti ke the, so your career was made. Mota mota, you would have an upper middle class salary, you could become a CEO, but bare minimum upper middle class to aapki zindagi ab rahegi. What were the traits you felt which made you, because I have a lot of general audience also, which made you crack IIM, because not everybody can be a novelist. Impossible to be. What were the traits that you thought you had then which made you crack IIM, and how many of these those traits you could use in your writing, or you had to relearn different traits? How did the two successful journeys go, and how were they different?
There were some traits which I had which helped me in IIM in my career, but I can't say those traits made me a happy person. I was a very hyper competitive, shouting, screaming, that kind of guy, right? Which is the kind of profile that the IIMs attract, right? The entire atmosphere is of that. And that certainly helps in your career. No denying that. I can't deny that there is, of course, a measure of luck as well. Getting into IIM and IT, it's so competitive because lakhs of people are sitting. You have to have kuch thoda agar talent, then you're in that group which has a chance. Beyond that, it's luck, yeah. Because you make one silly mistake, you lose half a point, your ranking falls by 3,000, which means you might not get in. So there is no doubt an element of of fate in it as well. But one thing which is better about the India of today than about the India in which I was growing up in. I'm 45 years old. That those days, boss, opportunities बहुत कम होते थे यार. या तो आप MBA करो, या engineering करो, medicine करो, CA करो, या भूखे मरो. Correct. These days, you can be a graphic designer and make tons of money. Boss, I mean, you can be a novelist and make money, right? तो आज के इंडिया में opportunities बहुत ज्यादा हैं. So you have to find where your talent lies. And one of the things I always suggest to people, to the younger generation, there is an attitude कि भाई success ऐसे ही मिल जाएगी, बस ऐसा नहीं होता है. There is no substitute for hard work. Okay. Luck plays a role, I don't deny that. Talent plays a role. So you have to find which area you have a natural talent in. Like Ishkaran, you speak very well, you argue very well. So your natural talent is in law, right? If you had tried to become a graphic designer, I don't know how you would have done, or social media specialist, God knows how you would have done, right? Then it's wrong of you to start thinking you don't have talent. It's just that you're in the wrong field. You have to understand where your talent is and pick the right field. Then after that, you have to work hard, boss. There's no substitute for hard work. So in my banking career, and boss, for 5-6 years, I was working in my financial services career, and I was writing books. I wrote my first 2 books along with my job. I resigned only after my second book, Middle Class Family, boss. I resigned only when my royalty check became more than my salary. Practical, pragmatic decision. Okay.
Very sensible. You have to.
You should be, boss. I mean, बाप दादा का आशीर्वाद है, जायदाद कुछ नहीं है. Okay. So you have to be practical, pragmatic, and hardworking. For 6-7 years, I used to work 7 days a week, 12-13 hours a day. I had no time for anything else. Well, you want success, you have to work hard. Okay. There's no substitute for that. But the first step is also important. Pick the field which is right for your talents. Don't pick the wrong field. All of us have some or the other talent. We have to find the right field.
This is so true because मैं अपने experience बताता हूँ. Lockdown था, जिसने भी किताब पढ़ी है उसके दिमाग में एक बार ये आता है किताब लिखूंगा. So I thought I would write a non-fiction on legal aspects of Kashi Mathura, the dispute. Then I realized कि भैया बस की बात नहीं है. Speaking comes more easily to me, so I started a YouTube channel. So you have to energy उतना ही है, effort उतना ही है. You have to see which direction you give in. There is an interesting question. Sorry. Sorry, you were saying something.
No, I was just agreeing with you. I was saying spot on.
So one of the things is that some of the questions coming in is that people are saying you sound so humble. Well, that's what I said. I started by saying he is very humble and very friendly, and it is he didn't come late because people immediately assume that he, somebody like that would come late. I was late, or rather, technology was difficult. A question people are asking in modern discourse, आज के date में जो हो गया है. How do you see Hinduism and Hindutva are different things, just a nomenclature difference? Or you think, or before that I come to that because you were talking about different areas having different practices. We had a huge controversy on Sabrimala. What is your view on Sabrimala? Some say that it is anti-feminism to stop entry in Sabrimala. People who are living there, they say, and this I'm only quoting opinions of those who are all devout Hindus. I'm not talking about those who are leftist liberal. Even in North India, some of devout females I knew, they were little, not comfortable with it. But in South, they are very comfortable. In fact, women were forefront of fighting it. So how do you see that Sabrimala entry issue? What is your opinion on it?
In fact, I feel strongly on it. So in fact, I've actually woven it into Ravan, a view on Sabrimala ji. And I think one of the key problems today is many Hindus themselves don't understand our own religion. For various reasons. I mean, I do so many events. I found, people who come and meet me and say, no, I'm a proud Hindu, but no, I'm not an idol worshipper. And I think, what is wrong with Murti Puja? Nothing wrong with it. Who told you Murti Puja is wrong? No, God said so. What? God came and told you that Murti Puja is wrong. You will see in the last 1500 to 2000 years, many communities which reject idol worship went around the world massacring millions of people simply because they worshipped idols. Not just in India, across the world. Most of the ancient world was actually Murti Puja.
Yep.
They went around the world massacring millions of people simply because they worshipped murtis. They destroyed temples. Do you find any case study of the opposite? That a culture, I'm not just talking about India, ancient Romans, ancient Greeks, anyone, Egypt, a culture which does icon worshipping, which does Murti Puja, going around the world killing people who don't do Murti Puja. Have you found any case study like this? Why not? Why not? And there is a deep reason for this. But the point is, we Hindus don't know our own culture, so we don't know how to. And so we have absorbed so much of the bias of the invaders against our own culture without realizing it. Which brings me to the Sabrimala ji question.
Yeah.
Like, what is wrong with Murti Puja? It's very good. In fact, you'll find that most cultures which follow Murti Puja are intrinsically liberal often. I'm not saying they're perfect. There are downsides to that too. There's internal, stratification that happens, which is not good. I'm not saying they're perfect. But one of the benefits of Murti Puja cultures which are called idol worshipping, are actually they're intrinsically very liberal. And there's a reason for that, philosophical reason. I'll come to, that's a separate thing. But the fact that we Hindus don't understand our own culture shows in our understanding of Sabrimala ji, especially of North Indians. And like I said, I've studied in the South, many years in Tamil Nadu. So I was aware of issues like Jallikattu of Sabrimala ji, before North Indians, because I'd studied in the 80s in Tamil Nadu. Now, in the Indian traditions, it can be classified in various different ways. One of the key ways to classify it is those which is the Gruhastha, the householder form of worship, and the other is the sannyasa form, okay, the monk traditions. Yeah? So there are two groups. Buddhism, Jainism, the monk traditions are still alive very strongly. In Hinduism, the monk traditions declined quite a lot. They were strong in ancient times. In Hinduism, the monk traditions have declined, okay, especially in the north for various reasons. Some of it is because of the invasions, but there are various reasons for it. What is the Gruhastha? If you notice the Gruhastha way of worship, most of it, that's why most of the temples you find in the north are of the Gruhastha form of worship, the householder form of worship, where you see the god with a relationship. Okay. The god is your father, your elder brother. You celebrate the bhakti relationship between Hanumanji and Ramji. Do you notice the temples are all about some relationships? The sannyasa form is about moving away from all relations. The Gorakhnathji temple is a bit like that, moving away from all relations. Okay. Neither way is right or wrong. Okay. They're just two different paths. In the sannyasa form, you are supposed to, you actually do in a way a funeral ceremony for your old identity, right? Your old identity goes. You don't have any parents, nothing. You in effect have a new birth as a sannyasi. You're a monk, correct? And this is there in the male traditions and in the female traditions. There are male monk traditions, there are female monk traditions. You'll find that in these monk traditions, there are various parts which you move away from your families, including even sex, right? You move away from, you don't eat meat, you will not drink alcohol, because you are supposed to give up all the rasas of life. Then you become a monk, correct? There were temples across India which gave you, in a way, a trailer of a monk's life for a few weeks. So a householder could be a monk for a few weeks and then decide कि भाई आजीवन monk बनना है कि you want to go back to the Grihastha life. Sabrimala ji is one of those temples. There are temples like this in the female monk traditions as well, as the Kanyakumari temple used to be, right? So there, obviously, if you have taken a monkhood tradition, you cannot drink alcohol, you cannot drink meat. It's a sannyasa tradition, correct? And yes, you have to be celibate as well, which is the tradition. Which is why you'll find in the female monk temples, men are not allowed. That is not anti-male; it's just a sannyasa tradition. That is all. And Sabrimala ji is a male monk tradition. So therefore, females within the reproductive age are not allowed. This is just a sannyasa tradition. It's trying to force the Gruhastha route into the sannyasa route. Will be a bit like going to a Buddhist monastery, the Dalai Lama monastery, and say no, women have to enter. Will you force that? Will you go to a nunnery and say no, men have to enter? Why can't men enter a nunnery? It's a monk tradition. It's a female monk tradition. Just like women cannot enter a male monk order in Christianity, Buddhism, and in Hinduism. It is actually just like that. This is not a male-female issue. It is a Grihastha Sannyasa issue. Householder and monk tradition. We are applying householder rules to what is essentially a monk tradition temple. So that is the fundamental misunderstanding. And I have tried to explain this in Ravar. And most Hindus themselves, we ourselves don't understand this issue. It has nothing to do with male-female.
No, यही है जो framing of debate है वही इतनी important है, because जो ये debate frame हो जाती है male-female में, rather than framing it as different cultural practices.
It is Grihastha Sannyasa, householder monk. And a monk, it's like, I mean, I can either give this entire thing or give one simple thing. Are you going to go to a Buddhist monastery, a Dalai Lama monastery, and insist that women should enter? Are you going to go and do that? Are you going to go to a Christian nunnery and say men have to enter? Are you going to do that? No, because it's a monk tradition. It's the same way with Sabrimala ji. It's a monk tradition, right? It's just that it's a temporary monk tradition for a few weeks, for the time when you have to do the vratam. But we Hindus, we don't understand our own culture. So we think it's a male-female issue. No, it's a householder monk tradition difference.
True. And also, as I put it, see, if you were to ban women from all temples, that would be discrimination. And there are practices where that happens, not in Sanatan Dharma, and I'm not getting into that. But if you were to ban women from all places of worship, that could be a discrimination.
Exactly, because then you will be forcing the monk traditions on a householder temple. I'm a householder, correct? I'm not a monk.
Yeah.
So I follow the householder traditions in my puja. So you can't force a monk tradition on me. But where is Hinduism doing that? We are not doing that.
In fact, the reason, as you said, we are the oldest continuous Murti Puja civilization is because our practice is different. If somebody invaded, he could not convert one holy monk and everybody else had to convert.
There's no one head to cut off.
There's no one head to cut off.
We were discussing the importance of IT. I don't know how many tech people you have in your viewers, but all IT people will know the value of a backup. In our culture, in our tradition, there's always a backup. You destroy one kingdom, another kingdom will rebel. You destroy one community, another community will rise. You destroy one temple, another temple will rise. There are enough backups. We will not die.
That's what I'm saying. अगर आप जाओ यूपी में, मैं बता रहा हूँ आपको, हर 3 किलोमीटर में कोई और संत होंगे, बाबा होंगे, उनकी एक अपनी फॉलोइंग होगी, एक अपनी इंटरप्रिटेशन होगी. So you cannot by one cut change an entire country as diverse. और यही strength है, which is why
strength है हमारी. But there is still a link linking us all together. So it has the beauty of both. It has the anti-fragile nature of flexibility, but it has a unity which holds us all together. Like the Vishnu Puran says, no? Uttaram yat samudrasya himadresh chaiva dakshinam varsham tada bharatam nama bharati yatra santati. More than 2000 years ago, our ancestors described that north of the ocean, south of the Himalaya, is the noble nation, Varsham, noble nation of Bharat. And there live the descendants of Bharat. More than 2000 years ago, our ancestors had described this land as our land. This is where the people of the descendants of Bharat live. So there is a common tradition linking us. But there are different interpretations possible. Like I said, in South India, they can believe that Lord Kartik has 2 wives. In North India, we believe Lord Kartik is a bachelor. And both are very happy with each other. No problem.
In fact, the discourse on truth in our scriptures, or Satya, and very important today in the era of fake news, which is flowing everywhere. So for audience which is very social media hungry, and there is a lot of dispute on what is news, what is fake news, what is Satya, what is not Satya, what do our scriptures talk about? And there have been many discourses on that, of Satya, what is truth? How do you see it?
I will answer this using two wonderful lines. One, of course, I'm sure all of you have heard of. Ekam sat vipra bhavata vadanti. It comes from the Asya Vamasya hymn. That truth is one, but the wise speak it as many. So our culture from ancient times has been very comfortable with multiple truths. No problem. Okay. And the fact that they all emerge out of one truth. And our task is to try and grow towards, spiritually towards that. But very few of us actually understand one truth. One of the things our ancestors used to say is that if you're spiritually not ready for the one truth, forcing it down your throat is a path to insanity and violence. So if you're not spiritually ready, you should not be forced down. You have to grow to understand it. But a second thing which is equally important in this day of social media, this comes from the Natya Shastra. Satyam bruat, priyam bruat, na bruat satyam apriyam. That speak the truth, but speak it with love. And if you cannot speak the truth with love, then don't speak it. Okay. This is a very important point that many of us forget these days. They're not telling us, our ancestors aren't telling us that speak lies, speak the untruth. No. There's white lies. No, that's not okay. They're saying speak the truth. But the value of having good manners when you're speaking, the value of just speaking with love, That's one of the things that comes down from the Nachi Shastra. One of the things our ancestors told us, which sadly we've forgotten today. आजकल debate इतना aggressive हो गया है, you know. And by then, who will you convince if you aren't speaking with love? The other person is not listening with an open mind. Then there's no way you can convince a person, no? So I think one of the things that we have forgotten, which our ancestors used to believe in very strongly, the value of good manners. You know, speak the truth, but speak calmly, speak with love. You'll be surprised how many people will listen to you if you speak calmly and with love. That's a thought that comes out from ancestors, and at least I believe in that. Try and speak with love as much as you can.
No, and that is very important, because what you said, we survived because of multiple interpretations. There is sometimes a very hard school which says, no, multiple interpretations are wrong. This is the interpretation. I said, if you go into that route, you are going into route of monism. You will not enter into a good phase, because then you might become stronger in certain aspects, but अंदर से brittle हो जाओगे.
अंदर से brittle हो जाओगे. The thing, it's a bit like, I mean, I'm a diplomat now, so I can't speak of countries, but you'll see countries which appear very strong, which are authoritarian. You'll notice when they collapse very suddenly, because अंदर इतने brittle हो गए. So I know it appears like it's our weakness, it's actually our strength. The fact that we have the space in our hearts for multiple interpretations, it means we're not threatening anyone else with our truth, which means more people can join without it being without them having to lose anything. It's actually a strength. And I always believe this, that our ancestors fought very hard to keep our culture alive. Almost every other ancient culture has been wiped out. Okay? We are still alive. There are various reasons for it. One of the reasons is that our ancestors were exceptionally brave. They kept fighting. They did not surrender. Zoroastrian Persia, which was one of the greatest empires of its time, survived for only 15 to 25 years when the Arabs attacked. That's it. They were wiped out. 1,000 years later, Sala, hum abhi tak khade hain. We are still alive. We've lost a lot. I'm not denying it. But we have to honor our ancestors who fought so hard to keep our culture alive. And if in our revival, we forget what our ancestors themselves taught us, what is the point of reviving, boss? If we become a mirror image of the invaders who attacked us, then in my mind, boss, we are insulting our ancestors.
True.
We have to revive, of course, but we have to revive our way. Not become a mirror of those who invaded us. Boss, that will be, can you imagine what our ancestors will think? Up in Pitrulok, or, if they're in, heavens in the Vaikuntha, wherever already, what will they think if their own descendants become a mirror image of the invaders who they fought? What is the point of winning here?
फिर आप वैसे भी हार जाओगे, because then it is, you've lost it. You've anyways lost it.
We have to revive what our culture was. I'm not suggesting defeatism at all. No. But if we lose our liberal core, then what is the point, boss? I'm not suggesting be a liberal doormat. No. Liberal but strong, the way Shivaji was, right? The way Chhatrapati Shivaji was. I mean, he never did anything which was against dharma. But no one could call him weak. He was very strong. Correct? There's a California kind of liberal and a New York kind of liberal. Right? We are New York kind of liberal but tough. Right? That is our way. That is the Indian way.
That has to be because what you said is so right. Zoroastrian, or see, Egypt, river god, Nile, pharaohs,
all finished.
France, Druids wiped out. Nothing.
All wiped out. They are studied in Western universities by scholars, just like how students dissect frogs in school today. Sadly, that is the status of those great cultures. Who believes in those cultures anymore? Even today, after thousands of years, we still chant Sri Rudram. Vaishnavas still chant Purushottam. There are hymns that are millennia, thousands and thousands and thousands of years old. आज तक हम लोग उसे chant कर रहे हैं. हम जिंदा हैं भाई. So if we lose all this, then we are insulting our ancestors.
And I say sometimes different people. Numbers wise, we are probably the third largest people in the world, even today.
Correct.
Even
Correct.
today, we are. And those are the strengths. But I would, even if you're a diplomat, but I would still ask you a bit on the economy, because this Corona crisis, there are two aspects to it. The health crisis, that I won't trouble you too much, but I will ask you, health may only depression and anxiety of how people face it towards the end. But because you said, I would like to ask you this. You have been a banker, mathematics guy. How do you see the economic situation that we are in now, and how do you think India is placed in this economic situation?
This is one of those, I know it's a cliche, but this is one of those world-changing events. How long this crisis itself will last, I don't know. Maybe 12 months, 18 months, till a vaccine comes. Could be longer, 24 months. But the economic and social impact of this crisis will last for many years, perhaps decades. And the key thing in a crisis like this that countries have to do is get through this crisis with as much of their strength, saving as much of their strength as they can, so that they can play the game better once this crisis is over, 18 months or 2 years later. The key thing, and in that sense, I think our government is being very wise. We reacted quickly. So the disease never really, on a per capita basis, it still is under control in India. We have done a lot of innovative, low-cost innovations on testing, on using rail coaches. As who would have thought of that? These are brilliant ideas, right? I mean, some countries have to build a 1,000-bed hospital, which costs a lot. We built 6,000-bed hospital just using our railway coaches. It's brilliant. And if you think of the brilliance of that idea, the coaches can just be taken just on the tracks, taken to wherever there's excess demand. You see the brilliance of it. It's like you have a hospital on wheels, which you can just take around. This is the kind of innovation we need, which fortunately we are showing. We are the second largest producer of PPEs now, right? India is showing the strength and ability to be able to handle this. And I think and that will be extremely critical, because debt has shot up everywhere in the world. And what is debt essentially? You're taking money from the future generations and spending it now. You have to pay off that debt in the next 20, 30 years. So it remains an overhang on growth for a long time. So the ability of nations to manage things at low cost right now is a very, very critical thing. And Indians are showing the ability to do that. One of the things I said in an interview, in an article, that India, in some ways, we Indians, बहुत विचित्र लोग हैं, because in normal times we are completely chaotic. Okay, getting Indians to come together for anything, boss, मतलब कोई leader बेचारा पागल हो जाएगा. But we are so rebellious, we are so chaotic. But something happens to us during crisis times where we suddenly become very focused and disciplined. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Most countries are the exact opposite actually. In normal times they'll be disciplined. In crisis times they become chaotic. India में exact उल्टा है. Normal time में we are chaotic. Crisis time में suddenly we become very disciplined, very focused. Right? It will get us through.
It is what I say, our comfort with chaos. We are so used to chaos that more chaos, which is for a world a destabilizing event, we can. That reminds me, if you will allow me some liberty, in your Shiva trilogy, I'm sorry, I don't have the book with me right now. I remember this thing because in one of those three, I don't know, where you were talking about how, because manufacturing of that Somras or eternal nectar was not respected, the manufacturing went down, and it's like, I'm paraphrasing it very loosely because I don't have it. And I remember this because that time I felt like taking a picture and tweeting the paragraph. It was something about if you do not respect industry or manufacturing or why it went low and why it shifted. I'll probably, after lockdown, find the paragraph and tweet it also. So how do you think, first I will ask you, how do you think industry or business was respected in ancient India? Was it respected? Was it, as one version is of people who say it was only about learning, philosophical things, not about math, science, not about STEM subjects? How do you think ancient India, from what you have read, was placed when it came to STEM learning. For those who do not know STEM learning in India, it's like science,
tech, engineering, maths. Yeah. No, in fact, one of the things, if you read, Chanakya Niti, if you read Mahabharata, one of the things that becomes very clear, Shanti Parva, etc., that ancient Indians believe that any society where one part of society's contribution is not respected is headed for disaster. So, which means societies that produce knowledge, parts of society which produce knowledge, parts of society who are the warriors who defend the country, parts of society who create wealth, and parts of society which are the artisans, the who create the work. Okay, you need respect for all four, otherwise society itself will collapse. Okay, so India was the kind of place where all four had to be important. There was a time when Angus Madison's figures, India was 1/3 of global GDP for most of the first millennium. We were the greatest innovators, huge advancements in science, maths, and we would beat back every foreign invader. From the 12th century, we started losing to every foreign invader. But before that, let's be honest, we are taught Alexander the Great. Okay. And Alexander the Great destroyed Persia. But the only place where he almost lost his life was the Battle of Multan, which was in India. Okay. And the only place where his army was fought to a draw, perhaps he lost, was when he fought a minor, we see Porus as a great king, Puru, but net Porus was the ruler of a small part of Pakistani Punjab. That's it. And he fought Alexander to a standstill. Okay. Alexander hadn't even fought the greatest empire of his age, Mahapadmananda, right? The Nanda Empire.
The Nanda Empire, yes.
So just a small kingdom at our borders was enough to stop who we are told was the greatest conqueror of that age. Correct. We had tough warriors. We could beat back every invader. We had brilliant businessmen. We had great scientists. And look at our temples, look at our artisans, the greatest works that we created. Right. So we had respect for all four. And if you have a society which does not respect businessmen, you are asking for poverty. Okay. This is what our ancestors told us. This is one of the problems with Indian society today. Because we have absorbed that virus of Karl Marx. Okay. We have absorbed socialism so deeply that we assume that businessman hai matlab chor hai. Stupid, boss. I'm not a businessman. Okay. But for a society to start assuming that every businessman is a thief, then you are asking for poverty. Who's going to create the money, boss? Okay, that you need to use to spend, to spend to raise to and help the poor people.
I will give you this because this constant feedback I get. I tweeted once or twice that businessmen will not be able to pay salaries after 2-3 months. Almost everybody came out saying कि आप businessman का support कर रहे हो, आप तो ये चोर हैं, इनके पास इतना पैसा नहीं. मैंने कहा भैया समझो, आपके सामने जो मैकेनिक की दुकान है वो भी बिजनेसमैन है, जो किराने की दुकान है वो भी बिजनेसमैन है. आपका जो you are an artist, some artists don't think business is important, you come from a business background. आप जो बुक पब्लिश कर रहे हैं, प्रिंट हो रही है, पूरा जो पैराफिनेलिया है, इकोसिस्टम बिजनेस है. We need to respect that. हमारे देश में वो अनफॉर्चुनेटली उसके बारे में बात करो तो आपको ब्लेम कर देंगे, सूट बूट वाले आदमी हो, आपको धरती से जुड़े नहीं हो, आपको कुछ समझ ही नहीं है.
धरती से जुड़े हो भाई, हमारी प्राचीन परंपरा यही कहती है that you have to respect the Vaishyas as well. Otherwise माँ लक्ष्मी कहाँ से आएंगी भाई? कौन लाएगा माँ लक्ष्मी? वैश्य ही लाएंगे. Correct? Our businessmen will get it. So, and to assume that every businessman is a chore is a bit like assuming every warrior is a monster. We understand that's wrong, right? There could be some soldiers who do something wrong, but to say all soldiers are like that is of course wrong. There could be some scientists who don't think through the consequences of their inventions. I agree. Some scientists, like some genetic engineering, some of the things that's happening should not be happening. I admit.
About coronavirus.
I'm a diplomat. But the point I'm trying to make is to say, if you say that some scientists are doing something wrong, so because of that, all scientists are wrong, that's silly, We understand that logic. Some soldiers may be doing something wrong, but to say all soldiers are wrong, we understand that's silly logic. But some businessmen could be doing corruption For that, for you to say all businessmen are doing corruption, we don't. How come we lose our logic there?
Amish, a question is coming by many people because you talked about Alexander and history and how Nanda Empire was great. They are saying, ये सब आपने स्कूल कॉलेज में पढ़ा, वो तो नहीं पढ़ा होगा क्योंकि हम सब स्कूल कॉलेज से निकले हैं. So ये सब आपने कहाँ पढ़ा and as per you क्या रिफॉर्म चाहिए हमारे एजुकेशन में कि हम सिर्फ डिफीटिस्ट बातें ना पढ़ें. We see a balanced sector. We lost, we won. We need to have a balanced perspective.
The problem with our education system is it is the same colonial Raj education system which has been carrying on till now. Our history, what is taught to us, is not our history. It's the history of our invaders, as Sanjeev Sanyal had said. Okay, we are only taught the battles that we lost. We're not taught the battles that we won. Arey, how come we are still around? We're still around because we won battles also, no? We are not taught those battles. Our history also has a heavy Delhi bias. I'm not anti-Delhi. It's an important city. But it's not the only part of India, no? There are other parts of India also. Rajendra Chola, from what is Tamil Nadu today, had an empire that was bigger than Emperor Akbar's. Would you know that if you had, from your history lessons? Rajendra Chola is reduced to just a few lines in our history books. Rajendra Chola's empires were all of South India, all of East India, and most of Southeast Asia. Bay of Bengal was Rajendra Chola's pond. Before Sanjay Leela Bansali made Bajirao Mastani, frankly, let's be honest, how many Indians outside of Maharashtra knew of the greatness of the Maratha Empire? They thought British conquered India from the Mughals, which is not true. They conquered it from the Marathas. Correct? The Palas, the Buddhist Palas of Bengal, they had a massive empire. They are ignored. Gurjar Pratiharas, Mihra Bhoj, they are ignored. Hoysalas are ignored. And the Mughals have to be covered. Yes, they were a massive empire. But the Lodhis were glorified zamindars, boss. Why do we need to learn about them and not learn about Mihra Bhoj?
True.
Just because Mihra Bhoj didn't rule Delhi. How much are we taught of Ranjit Singh ji? So our history needs to be more balanced, and it's not just history. The problem is in all our subjects. In maths, we are only taught Pythagoras and Euclid. We are not taught Bhaskaracharya. We are not taught Bodhayana. We Indians still today, so many students are still learning that Pythagoras theorem was discovered by Pythagoras, which is not true. It was discovered by Bodhayana ji. In our architecture, we don't teach Vastu Shastra. And the impression of Vastu Shastra is about some superstitions, which is silly. No, it's not. It's a proper science. We are in our medical colleges, they'll teach Hippocrates. They'll not teach Charak and Shushruta. And look, we have to stop blaming foreigners after some time. We have been independent for 70 years. I hate this defeatist attitude we have. Bhai, Angrez ye karke chale gaye. Boss, we've been free for 70 years. Kab tak unko gaali dete rahenge? It's our fault. Why we not changed our education system? And we are a democracy. We have to demand these things from our leaders. No, we are not demanding things. If the politicians know that this is not an important vote-getting issue, they will not focus on it. I have written many times on this. We need to reform our education system. In fact, in my article, I joked also that if we Indianize our education system, do you think Queen Elizabeth is going to come and do a protest at Pragati Maidan? That how dare you change the education system that my ancestors put up? No, right? She won't care, man. So what are we craving? We need to change. It's our fault.
नहीं, जैसे आपने बहुत सही बात की. अब दिल्ली में आते हैं तो आपको मिलेगी औरंगजेब रोड, औरंगजेब लेन. औरंगजेब रोड नेम ऑब्वियसली ये सरकार ने चेंज किया. अकबर रोड, ये हमारे साउथ इंडियन किंग्स की आपको कोई नहीं मिलेगी. आपको कहीं नहीं मिलेगा महाराजा रंजीत सिंह मार्ग, आपको कहीं नहीं मिलेगा छत्रपति शिवाजी महाराज मार्ग. तो वो आपने उनको तो लोकल कर दिया है, जोनल कर दिया है इन अ वे. पंजाब में होंगी रोड, महाराष्ट्र में होंगी रोड्स, एयरपोर्ट होगा. बट जो आपका ग्लोबल कैपिटल है, वहां पे आपने सिर्फ, as somebody says, you have made it a city of mausoleums. You have not made it a city where जहाँ पे आप अपने हजार साल, 500 साल के empires दिखा रहे हैं.
Which is why when many people come from outside of Delhi, people come from different parts. They're like, boss, ये हमारी राजधानी कैसी है? हमारा तो कुछ दिखता ही नहीं है इसमें. And again, I'm not trying to be anti-Delhi. It is an important city, but we have to cover other parts of India also, boss.
True, absolutely.
Like, let me, we keep hearing of Pathan bravery, and yes, individually they were very brave. But have you noticed all the invaders to India came from Northwest India, almost none from Northeast India? Why is that? Because in the Northeast, there was a kingdom called the Ahoms. They used to beat back every single invader. Among the bravest people you've ever seen. What have we taught about them in the rest of India? What do we know? What do we know about the Battle of Saraighat? Nothing. It has to be balanced. We have to cover different parts of India also. Gurjar Pratiharas are ignored. The Rashtrakutas are ignored. The Satavahanas are ignored just because they didn't rule Delhi.
History से तो वैसे भी सीखना चाहिए जो आप हारे, what lessons you learn so that you don't lose again. We are taught as if that invasions were the way of life and this is how we have to emulate them. We are not taught at all, as you very rightly raised the point. ये तो भी social media है. So we are talking about our homes, we are talking about these things. Pre-social media, I'm sure in your college you would have never heard or read it or needed it in your banking career. But आपको ये
कोई बताता ही नहीं था. And I'm raising that point again, that if we were only suffering defeats for 1,000 years, how come we are still alive? How come our culture is still alive? Zoroastrian Persia is dead, no? Pharaonic Egypt is dead. Greco-Roman, the pagan culture is dead because they lost battles and then they died. They were wiped out. How come we are still here? Because we won battles as well. But उसके बारे में तो हमें कुछ सिखाया नहीं जाता.
Amish, what were some of your what irritated you most when you did deep research on perversions, which you found in these textbooks about Bhagwan Ram or Bhagwan, Lord Shiva or anybody? What were the glaring ones you felt were like completely wrong and were by and large believed in the mainstream?
So many यार, कहाँ से शुरुआत कहाँ से करें?
True.
We are a culture that is completely unmoored and uprooted, and we have done it to ourselves. For 70 years we've been free, and we've lost more of our culture in these last 70 years than we lost during the invasions. And I again say the fault is ours. If we don't know our own culture, like we were discussing the Sabrimalaji issue, if we don't know enough of our own culture to understand what the issue is, if I go to events and I see people who say they are proud Hindus, but then मैं मूर्ति पूजा नहीं करता हूँ, मतलब हम कितना खो गए अपने कल्चर को? The fault is ours, and all of us have to make our contributions to revive this. But I will say once again that this revival should not be driven by hatred. It should be driven by pride and love. Okay, because there's this. I'll say again, if we become like the villains who invaded us, then जीतने का क्या फायदा? We have to revive and become like our great ancestors. Confident, liberal, scientific, outgoing. In much of the first millennium, these are things we are not taught, right? That in much of the first millennium, in fact, I've actually written an article. I think I should write a book also on it. In much of the first millennium, more than half the world's population had absorbed Indian culture without us ever sending an army abroad. Okay. Now, I'm not just talking about Greater India, which is the Indian subcontinent. Southeast Asia. We never sent an army there outside of Rajen Chola, who sent an army once. Otherwise, we never sent an army there. Most of Southeast Asia became Shaivite cultures. They took on Indian names. They built Hindu-style temples. Their entire society they remodeled to the Indian way. China and Japan, absorbed Hinduism. Absorbed Buddhism. The Turkic people who are from Central Asia and Mongolia absorbed Buddhism and Hinduism. Right? This was more than half the world. Mithraism went from India to Persia and then to Rome. Okay, and we never sent an army. We only sent scientists and traders and artists We never sent an army, and yet we were such an attractive, powerful culture that people Indianized themselves because they thought it raised their status. Like today, people try and Americanize themselves because they think it raises their status. Oh, Mukesh will become Mike, because no, don't call me Mukesh, call me Mike, because it'll raise my status. In those days, people would take on Indian names because they thought it would raise their status. We were that powerful and attractive a culture. We didn't force our way, we attracted our way. Think of how brilliant our ancestors were. We are taught nothing of this. So we don't have that sense of pride that comes with it.
What would you say कि जो हमारा आज के ज़माने में हमने क्या 3-4 चीजें हैं जो आपको लगता है जो हमें past से we should get back? Some practices, tradition. What would you say? Revival has to start by people's practice. You speaking, others listening, others speaking, you listening, right? तो आपके हिसाब से क्या 2-3 चीजें हैं जो without government support, because I don't want everybody says everything government ने नहीं किया.
But which is not the Indian way in any case.
छोड़ दो.
We should have a Chanakya state rather than an Ashokan state. Minimal state which does a few things, does it very well. बाकी सब समाज नहीं करना है. Main thing is ज्ञान. We don't know enough. So we don't have the right role models. We don't have the right knowledge. So the first thing is to know, because that knowledge will fill us with pride. If you think about it, have you noticed that UK, Germany, many of these what are essentially Northern European countries think of Greece and Rome as their parent culture. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, civilization rock.
Yeah, and even America, Washington DC has a lot of Greco-Roman architecture because Greco-Roman culture is their original culture, which if you think about it is a little bizarre. Who actually destroyed Rome? Northern European Germanic tribes. Same people who also went to UK.
Yeah.
So the people who destroyed the Greco-Roman culture in the 16th, 17th, 18th century started, they created their own myths, their own mythos to say this was our parent culture. Correct. The Saxons of UK, where did they come from? They came from Saxony in Germany. These are all Northern European tribes, the ones who actually destroyed Rome. Okay. And why did they build this myth? Because it gives you pride. One of the things we keep saying pride comes before a fall. But you can't fall if you haven't risen in the first place, no? Excess pride is bad. Command बुरा है, admit. लेकिन आत्मसम्मान अच्छा है. Excess pride is bad, but pride is good because it gives you that fuel, right? We don't have any sense of pride because we don't know anything. And unlike the Northern Europeans and Americans who absorbed what was actually a different culture, Greco-Roman culture had more in common with North Africa than with Northern Europe.
Yeah.
You read Nassim Nicholas Taleb's books. Libya had more in common with Italy, okay, than Italy had with Germany. Okay, I'm talking about Roman times.
Because if you see Roman times, those were their bread baskets. Those were the places.
Exactly, because
so that was where the culture
Roman times was not about Europe. It is about the Mediterranean world.
Bread baskets.
Because the lands around the Mediterranean, right? So they just absorbed it to build pride. But we don't have to make shit up, no? Our ancestors were our ancestors. And they were among the greatest the world has ever seen. If we learn about them, we will get that pride and that will be our fuel. So we should learn. And it's not just the pride. There's so much sciences that can be learned, so much mathematics that can be learned from our ancestors. The biggest thing I would say is Gyan, knowledge. And for that, it's in our hands. Speak as much as we can.
Speak.
Study, talk, share.
Yeah. Also, education reforms. जब तक नहीं होंगे in a structural way, we will not reach any place in an organized way. Because most लोग कितना पढ़ते हैं exam pass होने के लिए. That's life. उसके बाद they get busy in life. So
I agree with you. This is a responsibility of all of us. We have to raise this issue repeatedly to our government.
Yes.
Reform and Indianize our education system. आप देखेंगे architecture में. Let me give you an example. There are real life implications of our education not being Indianized. Have you noticed that all our buildings, most in our big cities, we build these glass wall buildings. Okay. I'm in London. Glass wall buildings in Western Europe and London makes loads of sense. These are cold countries. Itna sun nahi hota hai. You build a glass wall building. lighting bill comes down, heating bill comes down, right? Because sun comes in, it heats up the place. Boss, India में sun की कमी है क्या? So why are we building glass wall buildings out there? And when you build a glass wall building, what you're essentially building is a giant microwave oven. Because the sun, I used to work in a bank. I had my last job, I was a senior management committee member. So I had a cabin which was, right, there was this big window. The sun would be baking me from this side. And to balance it, अंदर से AC blast करता था. All our offices are like that. Correct? एक तरफ से sun साला नहीं, sorry, but the sun is baking us. On the other way, AC is freezing us. Because we are building glass wall buildings, which makes sense in Western Europe, it makes no sense in India. India, the architecture style which makes sense is a central courtyard, improving airflow. That is what should be taught in Vastu Shastra. लेकिन हमारे architecture students के आप लोग क्या सिखाते हैं? European styles. इसीलिए ऐसी बिल्डिंगें बनती हैं, which makes no sense in India. There is a real world impact of our education system which is designed कि किसी भी तरह बंदे को अंग्रेज बना दो बस. That's what our education system is about.
And the resistance to change. I'll give you a legal example. हम लोगों को summers में कोट पहनना है, उसके बाद बैंड पहनना है, फिर गाउन पहनना है. तो मैंने 2-4 से बात की कि भैया why don't we change it? And some lawyers came up with saying, यार ये तो हमारी वर्दी है, अब इसको change नहीं करेंगे. Because it is so deeply ingrained that this is how a babu looks. So you will never want to.
अरे नई वर्दी बनाओ यार.
नई वर्दी बन जाएगी. हम किसी थाने जाएं तो लोग पहचान लेते हैं काले कोट में. अरे भाई कोई नई वर्दी बनाओगे तो किसी थाने जाओगे लोग पहचान लेंगे आपको.
पर भैया आप अंग्रेज हो कि भारतीय हो, वो तो समझ लो पहले.
But that resistance to change is a huge problem. And इसमें आपने जो बोला बहुत interesting है कि education reforms needed. You, me speaking, everybody speaking needs to be done. But do you think that since you're a diplomat now, what level can there be a government intervention, or you think it has to come organically अपने घरों से, अपने system से सिखाना पड़ेगा?
देखिए organically भी हो तो रहा है. Okay, education reforms इतने नहीं हुए हैं, but still many more people are talking about it. I am speaking, my books are selling, you are speaking, we are doing these YouTube channels. But look, for some things we need the government. Most things society should be doing. But education reform the society cannot do. And nothing impacts the minds of students as much as the education system. So this is something that seriously needs a lot of, and look, at the end of the day, we are a democracy. So it is not right for us to blame our politicians. At the end of the day, it is all in our hands. We have to put pressure on these issues. Politicians have to know that this is an issue which is very, very important to us. We want to Indianize our education system.
Amish, a lot of people are asking कि हमारे यहाँ पे modernization, westernization हो गया है. तो आप इसको, और यही सिखाया जाता है कि in fact we are even taught, I'll be very honest, that English is not a language, it's a skill set in India. जिसको भैया English आती है वो रोटी तो अच्छी खा लेगा. तो how do you see that, what modernization, whether हमें अपने past पे जाके लाना है, and how do you see modernization as different from westernization?
देखिए मॉडर्नाइजेशन का अगर हम मतलब ये निकाल लें कि हम सबको अंग्रेजी बनना है, अंग्रेज बनना है, ये एक्चुअली गलत इंटरप्रिटेशन होगा. जापान एक मॉडर्न स्टेट है, लेकिन कई हद तक उन्हें अपनी संस्कृति, अपने सभ्यता को बचाए रखा है. लेकिन जो पश्चिमी देशों की जो अच्छी बातें हैं वो भी उन्हें सीखी. करेक्ट. तो हमारे पूर्वज तो ये कहते थे कि भाई सरस्वती माँ तो किसको भी आशीर्वाद दे सकती हैं, सिर्फ हमें क्यों, सिर्फ भारतवासियों को क्यों, वो किसी को भी आशीर्वाद दे सकती हैं, किसी देश में भी आशीर्वाद दे सकती हैं, वो तो पाकिस्तानी को भी आशीर्वाद दे सकती हैं. तो अगर उससे कुछ सीख सकते हो तो सीखो. ओके. So there are some things we can learn from the West. I'm not anti-West. There are some good things we can learn from the West, no doubt. Okay, and let's learn that. But we should not forget what our own culture is. Sadly, what is happening right now is we are learning all the bad habits of the West. Obesity is rising क्योंकि सबको पिज्जा खाना है या कोक पीना है. Okay, those aren't good for your health. So we are learning all the bad things, but we are not learning some of the good things of the West. And there's no doubt that in the last 2-3 centuries, they've been the most successful culture. There are some secrets of that success. What is the harm in learning that? No harm. But we should not forget our own culture. Okay. So when we start seeing what is modernization? It's the skill sets you need to succeed in the modern age. Okay. And if modernization equaled westernization, then the only countries that would be succeeding in the modern day would be Western countries. Is that true? Many countries that are not Western, which are also succeeding. So we have to find our own path, learn the good things of the West, but our core has to remain solid. Because if we forget our own culture, then what's the point of succeeding?
On culture, I would like to ask you, what is your view? In culture, in my childhood, I remember celebrating cultural event, festivals, Holi, grand way, okay. Diwali, grand way. Now, because of various reasons, some would say environmental, some would say court intervention, some would say NGO interventions, it's being squeezed out. In fact, schools में actively सिखाना शुरू कर दिया है कि होली में ये गलत हो जाएगा, दिवाली में ये गलत हो जाएगा, आप दशहरा मंगाएंगे तो ये गलत हो जाएगा. What is your take? Because on this was ये हमारा समाज ही बहुत divided है. This is. So what is your take on grand celebrations in the manner they were going on in your childhood, my childhood, and what is being done right now?
Look, we are one of the last surviving ancient ways. Okay. There's this book I read of Catherine Hicksey, The Christian Destruction of the Classical World, the Greco-Roman world. And we are one of the ancient cultures, which means that our religion is not congregational. It's not that we meet once a week at a temple, all of us, to keep our culture alive. For most ancient ways, which are pejoratively called pagan today, festivals are very important. Festivals are very, very, very important, because that is when we actually come together and celebrate our culture communally as in everyone together. Otherwise, most what are called pagan cultures, the religion is very individual. Unlike Abrahamic religions, where the religion is congregational, they meet once a week. Our religion is very individual. So festivals are very, very critical. You'll notice that one of the ways of how the Greco-Roman religions slowly died out is when festivals were banned. Festivals of the Roman pagans was banned slowly. Why was the Olympic Games also banned of Greece? Because they weren't just secular games, they were actually a religious celebration. That's why they were banned. Okay. So for me, it is very critical that we have to keep our festivals alive. It is very critical to our way of life. It's one of the reasons why again, I am aware of Jallikattu because I had studied in Tamil Nadu. Which is why in Sita, Warrior of Mithila, I put in a Jallikattu scene. Because I didn't like, I'm not saying it's perfect if there are, but I'm not saying that festivals have to be followed exactly the way we did 20 years ago. If there are some improvements possible, we should do it. Like, for example, those chemical colors in Holi, that's not good. We should not do it. Okay. Or men misbehaving with women in Holi, unacceptable, boss. मिले तो साले को डंडा मारो और जेल में डालो. Okay, that is unacceptable. But Holi ban नहीं होगा. जल्लीकट्टू चलेगा. जब तक भारत देश चलेगा, जल्लीकट्टू चलेगा. Okay, and which is why in Sita, I felt strongly about this. Which is why in Sita, Warrior of Mithila, I put in a scene where Lakshman ji plays Jallikattu. Ab bolo. We have to realize the importance of festivals in our way of life, in what is called the pagan way of life, what we are called today. Because we are not congregational religions, we are individual religions. So festivals are the only place where we celebrate as a community. So if there are wrongs that have come in, like in Jallikattu, I admit there are some cases where animals are mistreated. That is wrong. That is against our traditions. That should be stopped. That should be reformed. But Jallikattu cannot be banned. Kampala cannot be banned. Holi cannot be banned. Gokulashtami cannot be banned. So we have to keep our festivals alive. It is very, very critical to our way of life. We have to understand that. It's not just a celebration. It is central to our way of life.
हमेश बहुत अच्छा पॉइंट है कि इट्स नॉट अ कॉन्ग्रेगेशनल, सो हमें करना पड़ेगा. बट एक बहुत नई चीज आई है कि भाई होली तो 100 साल पहले बननी शुरू हुई थी, दिवाली तो 150 साल पहले बननी शुरू हुई थी, उससे पहले तो ये होता ही नहीं था, सिर्फ दिया जलता था. या आपके जो भी आपने इतना कुछ पढ़ा हुआ है, एंशिएंट इंडिया में मे बी डिफरेंट फॉर्म में, व्हाट वर द बिग सेलिब्रेशंस एंड हाउ वर वी सेलिब्रेटिंग इट?
आई एम सेइंग अगेन कि एग्जैक्टली जैसे होली आज होती है, वो 2000 साल पहले थी ऐसा थोड़ी कह सकते. केमिकल कलर्स तो थे ही नहीं उस जमाने में. तो आई मीन इट इज सम मार्क्सिस्ट हैंडबुक ऑफ हिंदुइज्म टू से कि वी वर, दिस इज नॉनसेंस. ओके, but what are our festivals around? Remember, all pagan ancient cultures, the festivals were around Ritu, around the cycles of the universe. Okay, so we would celebrate, you know, not just in India but across the world, the summer solstice, winter solstice, the two equinoxes. In that period, you know, there would be some celebration. It could be in any form. Okay, and those forms will change. Of course they will, because anyway in our way there is no thing like this is the one truth forever and you cannot change it, otherwise you'll go to hell. That's not our way. Of course we keep changing. So for someone to say the way it is being celebrated today was not the way it was celebrated 2000 years ago, are obvious hai bhai. Obviously, because in our way there is no one truth which lasts forever. In our way truths keep getting updated, but the celebration used to happen. आज का जो नवरात्र भी होता है, was it exactly that way 2500 years ago? I don't know. 5000 years ago? I don't know. But was a Navratra celebration there? Certainly.
That is the important.
That was there. The method of celebration may be different. Okay, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Which means that if you want to adjust the celebration now, like पहले जो होलिका जो होती थी वो तो होलिका दहन होता था. Okay, शायद कलर्स भगवान जाने, मतलब I haven't, you know, one, at least I can't say for sure, but celebration used to happen and we have to keep those festivals alive. This is something that we as a community has to understand, the importance of festivals for our way of life. We are not a congregational religion. Festivals are very, very critical to keep our culture alive. Greco-Roman culture, Egyptian culture, one of the many things, of course their temples were destroyed, etc. But one of the key things was the banning of their festivals.
They say if you study that two ways of destroying any civilization, culture and language. आप language destroy कर दो, कोई common past ही नहीं रहता, आप culture destroy कर लो. So though that is why Jews, wherever they went, and if you read I was reading about the House of Rothschilds, how they kept their codes in Yiddish so that nobody else could, you know, duplicate and do
it. The Ashkenazi Jews did that.
So because अगर आपका language है तभी आपका past से continuity रहेगा. Otherwise, as you said, we had no words for certain practices of Abrahamic faiths. हमारे में वो word ही नहीं था. Like नास्तिक आस्तिक debate in India, godless था ही नहीं.
There was no word for blasphemy, for example. वो concept ही नहीं था हमारे इसमें. No one was beyond question, not even the gods and goddesses. Concept ही नहीं था तो शब्द ही नहीं था. तो एंड ऐसा नहीं कि भाई आस्तिक नास्तिक के ऊपर अटैक करते थे या नास्तिक आस्तिक के ऊपर अटैक, यू नो, वायलेंट अटैक. नहीं भाई, डिबेट होगा, बट एवरीवन हैज अ राइट टू दैट ट्रूथ. दिस इज आवर वे, सो वी हैव टू सेलिब्रेट आवर वे. एंड यू आर एब्सोल्युटली राइट. आई एम ग्लैड, यू नो, देयर आर मेनी हु टेक दिस सीरियसली नाउ. आवर फेस्टिवल्स हैव टू बी केप्ट अलाइव. वी कैन अपडेट इट, वी कैन चेंज इट, नो प्रॉब्लम, बट ऐसा नहीं हो कि हम फेस्टिवल्स भूल जाएं ना. ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए.
No, I am so extremely militant on that our culture has to be celebrated. In fact, I was on a talking tour in Western US, Canada side, and I saw how beautifully the temples there are being used for Independence Day. They are being used for Holi, Diwali to hai hi hai. Independence Day is being celebrated there because wahan pe community comes together, because of mandirs become a center of not worship, but they are being used as a center of young kids learning. Gurdwaras are being used for young kids to learn their culture, celebrate Independence Day, connect with they call a guest speaker, you know, and speak. So the way they are, मैंने वहाँ पे जाके देखा, first time I went for this sort of a thing 5-6 years ago, मैंने कहा ये तो हम इंडिया में भी नहीं कर रहे.
Was one of the if you see many of our ancient cities in North India were destroyed. Vijayanagar is one of the places that you can see it. If you notice how cities were, they weren't built around the palace of the king. Unlike, say, how Delhi is or Agra is, the medieval Agra and Delhi. Our ancient cities were built around the temple, not around the palace of the king. And you see this style in Vijayanagar, in Hampi, because it's still there. Many of the other things died out. Why was that? You'll notice in Hampi, there's a temple. The market would be outside it. All the houses would be around it because the temple would have a Kalyana Mandapa. It would have various facilities because the school for the locality would be in the temple. The granary, in case famines happened, would be in the temple. The pond water supply for the area would be in the temple. The mandapa, because performances would happen every night in the temple, dance performance. Because for us, everything was built around religion, right? Our dance performance was also dharmic. Our musical performances were dharmic. Marriages would happen out there. So everyone would gather there every evening, not because you're being forced to do that by the temple priest. It's because it's the place you want to go to, because that's where you meet your friends, that's where you learn your culture. That is what we have to revive. One of the problems also is our temples are not controlled by the community. Our temples are controlled by the government. So therefore, this function does not. It is not served by the temple. Our temples used to be the center of our, of that local central culture.
What's your view on this on this government control of temples? Because you raised this point, they are no longer in our. See, there are two views. I'll tell you why I'm asking this question. I'm doing a lot of cases on this. One view is that some people say that if few families start controlling temples, and because this is a long form chat, so I'm putting both sides. It will lead to deviant practices and monopolization of wealth in hands of a few people controlling the temple. Government control is absolutely wrong as per me, but it's obviously have to speak, because there then the funds get diverted 20 places. There is a live case going on in Tirupati where they are refusing to even audit accounts. It's a petition filed, notices served to government. For I'm involved in that case. Last 2 years, they are just taking dates because they don't even want to be audited. The government appoints auditor. So where do you see? It's a little delicate question, but where do you see it? How do you see it?
It's a delicate question, but I guess what I will say is, you can't say that the community should not have a say in it. That's not fair. How do we find the middle ground? That would be ideal, but this is not the way any other religion is treated in India. Every other religion has the right to manage their own affairs. I won't deny the issues that you have raised. But it's not fair that only Hindus should be subjected to this.
If I'll tell you something very interesting. When Britishers came to India, they established a board of revenue in the beginning. Unka kya tha? Revenue maximize karna hai. So initially, their first order took every religious place, temples as well as mosques, everything. Unko kya? Revenue kamana hai. Unko koi difference nahi hai. Then they saw a very militant reaction by one section. It became a law and order problem. They were merchants. They said, "Yaar, ye to law and order problem ho rahi hai." So a second notification comes. This is 1700s. They exempted. That became the bedrock. Wherever then Britishers went, carbon copy of legislation, as always happens in government, kept on happening. So the initial view of Britishers coming was, sab kuch lena hai, hame to paisa kamana hai, taxation karna hai, temple pay tax, mosque pay tax. Because of law and order problem which arose, it was shunted out, and it has remained so. And we are working on a lot of cases. In fact, on recently Uttarakhand Char Dham Act, we filed a case to get it back because government has passed an order saying we are taking over all the temples there, which I don't think so should be done. But coming to a very important question which I wanted to raise, we are in a crisis mode now, probably the biggest since World War II. It altered the world in effects, after effects, 47 happened, India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, you know, China got independent, Cold War started, all offshoots of World War II. After that, we went into an era of, dominant globalization spheres of influence. We could be going back, we could be, if this lasts, as much as possible, going back to an era of hard borders, era of manufacturing be in your own country. It's too early to say, but if this lasts, we could be going in that direction. So there's a lot of anxiety in people. How do you, how did our ancestors deal with it? What do our scriptures say about it? What would you want to tell people to deal with anxiety? How to handle it? Because it's change is coming. As they say, winter is coming. Winter has come.
On that, I agree with you. The era of unfettered globalization is over. There are many winners of the unfettered globalization. Western capital, for example. Western middle classes lost out a lot, but Western rich benefited, upper middle classes and the rich benefited a lot. Which is why there's a rebellion against them in the West.
Yeah.
Against the elites. We have to see how things play out. But countries which can be, if unfettered globalization is over, is as is looking likely. And there were some countries where entire model was based on this, export driven or anthropods. Their model is under threat. But countries which can be entire economies in and of themselves, within themselves, then they have a comparative advantage. India can perhaps be like that. We are more of a continent than a country. 1.3 billion people. We have more people than all of North America, Europe, Middle East combined. All in one country. Correct? So हम लोग खुद बनाएंगे, खुद खाएंगे. We can manufacture and consume ourselves and create a very big economy. It's possible. In terms of society, the way I see it, look, societies could move in two directions. One is that there could be a rediscovery of traditions and spirituality. Society has become very individualistic over the last few decades. There have been gains of it also, I don't deny that. A lot more liberalism, women's rights, LGBT rights, there are benefits, I'm not denying that. But one of the downsides, as one sees in the West, so many people live alone. People are dying alone at home, boss. Because koi relations nahi hai, neighbors ke saath kuch relationship nahi hai. You know, it's the atomization of society has its downsides as well. So could they rediscover traditions and spirituality? Or will they go down the route of the roaring 20s? You know, after the First World War and the Spanish flu, which 50 million people died.
Yeah.
You had the roaring 20s, right, in America, where the Westerners decided that anyway, marna hai, might as well enjoy life, drugs, hedonism, parties, you know, the full roaring 20s. The West could go in that direction or in the rediscovery of traditions and spirituality. India, I suspect, will go in the rediscovery of traditions and spirituality. If the West goes in the direction of rediscovery of traditions and spirituality, I think India has a huge role to play. Because what will this rediscovery of traditions and spirituality be? Like one of the things that people are actually talking of, that why is this disease come about? Because of our meat habits, yeah. Okay. Now I'm a Shaivite. I myself used to eat meat, but I've become progressively vegetarian as I've grown older. It's a healthier, especially if you're older, it's a healthier diet. It's better for your organs, everything. But can the world survive with 8 billion meat eaters? Probably not. Okay. And this meat industry is where most of these diseases come from. That's a reality. So will there be a movement in that direction? If there's a movement in that direction, is there a big enough vegetarian cuisine? That can come only from India. People don't have good enough vegetarian cuisines, frankly. Southeast Asia and India, which is also influenced by, Southeast Asia is also influenced by India. If the revival of tradition means spirituality, you know, this yoga, pranayam, which are good, you need to be healthy to fight diseases like this. You need basic physical health. Our traditional ways actually help in that direction. Revival of tradition should not mean revival of conservatism and rigidity in the West. Can you be traditional and liberal at the same time? Okay, India can teach that example. So I think India will probably have a strong role to play in the coming years.
But this veg versus non-veg. It's been a big debate in India last 3-4 days because some Jain shop, in fact yesterday also it was on Republic discussing this only. Meat industry in India is basically primarily a halal meat industry. What do you is your view of those who are non-Muslims and eat meat? There is a movement which has started for dharmic certification of food or sattvic certification of food or whatever nomenclature of food. Because there will be people who will eat non-veg. Do you think that our society, if it was in your hand, should go into the path of vegetarianism or alternative forms of meat with alternative procedures as per each community's preference? Nobody should be banned or stopped. You prepare as per your preparation, you prepare as per your preparation. Or you think we should militantly try to go towards vegetarianism?
I don't know enough on this issue to comment on it. But one thing which I will certainly say, it'll be better for the world and for nature if more of us turn to vegetarianism. Ideally, it should not be forced. I'm not a fan of that approach. But, you know, I'm in UK. There was a study which was done by Oxford University recently, which had studied that if the entire world shuts down the meat industry, which is we stop consuming meat, that will save more greenhouse gas emissions than if the entire world junks every single automobile in the country. In the world? Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
The meat industry produces more greenhouse gases than the entire automobile industry. Okay. The meat industry consumes more water. You know, it is not environmentally friendly. Increasingly, we are discovering it's not good for your health either, right? Because this disease is basically jumped from, you know, where did we get this disease from? Because someone wanted to eat a bat. Okay. That is, if that is the belief. Where did the mad cow disease come from? Because someone wanted to eat beef. Okay. Where did SARS come from? Because someone wanted to eat a bird. Most of these viruses are actually in animals and they jump to humans because we are eating them. Okay. So if it is perhaps in our own, and there are many in the West who are realizing this, that it is in our own selfish interest. If we can become more vegetarian, it is in the interest of our own health. It is in the interest of Mother Nature. The world will be a better place. Do you know there are 80 billion animals which are slaughtered every year? 80 billion. Okay. Now, in our Hindu way, it is believed that, if you are eating something which has suffered, uski high aapko lag rahi hai. Okay.
Is your way that our ancestors? I'm sorry. Is your view that our ancestors were vegetarian, or you think they were eating?
No, they ate meat. That is mentioned in our scriptures. But their thing was that you should cause as little karmic damage as possible while eating meat. Okay. 8 billion people cannot be meat eaters without causing damage to Mother Nature. That's the point. See, what could have been a possibility 3,000 years ago doesn't mean that we have to do it now. Correct? Because 3,000 years ago was a different world, a far smaller population. Okay. But even then our ancestors were clear, some kinds of meat you should not eat. Why was that? Because it was considered not just because this animal is holy, but it was also because some animals cause you disease, you should stay away. But now there is a feeling that no, you want to eat everything. Okay. And you have to see the modern mechanized meat industry is a hotbed of disease. The way animals are put, it is naturally designed for disease. Okay. And then when you eat it, you consume that. And you'll obviously get ill. And it has been shown now to everyone. So it's not just good for the environment and for Mother Nature, it's good for your own individual health. Okay. So I would try and build the case from that perspective. And this is coming from, like I said, I'm a Shaivite boss, so hum log to meat khate hain. Okay. But I myself have become vegetarian. So I'm not I'm not saying it as a militant vegetarian. I'm genuinely trying to say we will create a better world and we will have better health. Something worth seriously thinking about. If this is enough of a shock, no, to all of us to rethink things.
After the serious, Amish, just two light questions to you.
Okay.
One, when is your next book coming now?
Okay.
Is the role of a diplomat made it easier for you to write or tougher for you to write?
Many year I write on nights and early mornings and on weekends. Not the nights, but early mornings and weekends. So War of Lanka is the tentative title of the 4th book of the Ramchandra series. Normally takes me a year and a half to 2 years between books. So War of Lanka is the tentative title. Let's see what the final time.
So you have a fixed discipline routine of writing, right? Sit down every day, this time to this time, right? Or whenever inspiration strikes you. What's the discipline versus creativity?
I at least sit and try to write. Then it's up to Lord Shiva. Sometimes he sends sometimes he doesn't send, he's busy with someone else. That's okay. So in those days I don't get frustrated, I just shut the laptop. The only thing I need for writing, I can write anywhere, but the only thing I need, I listen to music while writing. I have to keep listening to music while writing. And secondly, I eat a lot of cream biscuits while writing. So which is why I tend to put on weight when I'm writing. Yeah. Cream biscuits. In fact, many of my readers know this. So I've been to Litfest where readers come with cream biscuits. Ki ye lo aur jaldi likho.
You should say I get very inspired when gold is in front of me. People would be happy to give it to you to inspire you to write better. And when is a movie coming? People are asking this for last 7, 8, 6 years. Movie, web series. Nowadays Netflix is also there, Amazon, whatever. So what is the direction you're going in? When is it coming?
Try to kiya tha. There was a deal with Karan Johar as well. He's still a friend, but the rights have come back for various reasons. It didn't get made. We are certainly trying. Look, every book has its own fate. Banegi to zarur. We'll certainly keep trying. And whenever Lord Shiva wills it, it'll get made, and hopefully it'll be a series that is worthy of Lord Shiva and Lord Ram on Ramchandra series as well.
Book is so vast and vivid. It has to be like a grand production. So it is not.
Yeah, it has to be a Game of Thrones style. That's standard.
It cannot be.
Yeah, it should be showcased to the entire world. This is our culture.
Because a book will only be justified by a Games of Thrones sort of. So here's wishing you the best, and hopefully that will happen soon. Thank you, Amish, so much for your time. If anything last you want to say to the audience or anything?
No, I thoroughly enjoyed this, man. Thank you so much. And thank you to your audience for joining in. And we should certainly catch up here again.
Thank you.
Let's not wait for a YouTube thing. We can speak on the phone also.
Done.
Thank you. Bye, guys. Bye.